Well, my name's Kevin. I'm an alcoholic. I'm also your 10-minute speaker, much to my dismay. Oh, boy. If I knew I was going to share it, I wore a clean sweatshirt, you know? I don't know. Yeah, it's true. I took 5 years on Veterans Day, and it amazes the shit out of me. I'd have never thought, the marathons were a big part of when I was new. And I was sober 2 weeks. Thank you. 2 weeks around Thanksgiving. To give you a little idea of just how messed up I was when I got here, I celebrated that Thanksgiving at my mother's house with my family. And I was sober 2 weeks, and I was still wiping my fingerprints off the utensils. Because I thought they were trying to set me up, And that was with 2 weeks of sobriety under my belt, So you can imagine just how spun I was the day I got here. I don't know. I started drinking when I was real young, and I loved it. I ran with a lot of people that did like I did. Ran around with a lot of pot smokers, too. But I wasn't really into that, I was an alcoholic from the gate. Not that I'm opposed to pot or anything, I'll smoke it in a pinch. But, I don't know, I just liked the way it made me feel. I hear people talk about, they always felt like they had, I don't know, they always felt different. I don't know if I always felt different, I just always felt a little bit stressed out, even in kindergarten, And, I don't know, I was a good student, I was relatively smart. They did an IQ test on me, which I think was a big mistake, and I tested, genius, and I know it's hard to believe, but I'm sure I shaved a few points off since then, though. But I don't know, I did all right, and then about sixth grade rolled around, and I started, sniffing gasoline, and drinking booze, and I was always attracted to the seedier side of life, for some reason. I remember there was a bar down the street from my junior high, and I used to stick my head in the door, and take a big sniff, I loved the smell, the stench, and I couldn't wait, I couldn't wait to get in there and start tearing it up. And I don't know, I didn't have any real examples in my life of that. My father's an alcoholic, but he was out of the picture when I was real young. My mom was a good woman. She's not a drunk. She took care of me. My grandmother helped her. And, I come from a good family. But when I took that drink, it all went south, I'll tell you. Never really liked going to school that much, and when I took it, when I first started drinking, I stopped going to school. It was amazing how that happened. And, I started doing the typical things, like cutting class and doing crimes and doing burglaries and, juvenile delinquent shit. But I was the only one that ever went to jail behind it out of all my friends. And I always felt like I was persecuted, singled out. And there'd be a whole group of us drinking, and the cops would show up, and I'd be the one in the back of the car with the handcuffs, and all my friends would be run off. And I always thought that was, that was strange, but looking back on it, none of my friends called the cop a cocksucker, and said some of the other things that I said to him, and it's funny how when you get here, you're a victim. I was a victim, and, society treated me wrong. I never got the breaks in life that everybody else got, la-da-da-da-da, on and on and on ad infinitum, and you start looking back at some of it, with a little bit of rigorous honesty, and I like the way Iden put it, most of the shit sandwiches I had to eat, I fed to myself. And that rang true when he said that, I was constantly eating shit sandwiches, you know, and I didn't think it was fair, you know, and now that I'm sober, I have to eat a few shit sandwiches, but I don't eat as many as I used to. And I caused 99% of my own problems, you know, behind drinking. But I love to drink, you know, and nobody was going to stop me, you know, and I was ready for this program. I got my first court card at 16 years old for drunk driving, you know, and I got my license when I was 16, and I lost my license when I was 16 in 3 weeks. You know, and I had 2 DUIs, you know, and I found this place in the directory, and I was in the room next door, and I was a lot younger than everybody else. You know, and I don't think it would have mattered if they were all young, you know. I was just getting going, you know, and I love to drink, so I can't drive, so what? You know, and progressively things got worse, like they talk about. But I was willing to take my lumps, you know. I was one of those alcoholics that showed up for court. You know, not too many of us, but I always took care of my business, you know, and I always felt that gave me the right to drink, you know. And one time, I love to tell this story because it tells a little bit about myself and the delusion that I suffer from. And I used to get these court cards on a regular basis. I mean, I've had like almost 30 of them. And they were about 6 meetings, 8 meetings, you know, and one time I just said, fuck it, I ain't going to those meetings, you know, and I went back to court, and the judge asked me, he said, did you do your meetings? And I said, well, Your Honor, you see, it's like this, you know, I'm busy, you know, I've been busy, and I moved, you know, and, you know, next thing I know, I got handcuffs on, you know, and I'm back in the holding tank, and there's guys passing notes to me about what they want to do to me. And, you know, and I was talking to Carl about this earlier. I'm hooked up on the chain, getting ready to get on the bus, and they pull me back up into court. They unhook me, take me in front of the judge one more time. It's about 5 o'clock, and the judge asked me, he says, do you think you could do those meetings? I said, well, yeah, I think I can do them, you know. I didn't want to go to jail. But this is how I think, you know, and I was sober. My car was parked out in the parking lot, and there was a 2-hour limit. So I was willing to do the meetings, but the judge had to do something about the parking ticket that I knew I had. So I said, yeah, Your Honor, I'll do the meetings, but, you know, about my parking ticket, you know, and I've been parked out there all day. Luckily, he wasn't paying any attention to me. He was talking to somebody else. But the bailiff was, you know, and he gave me a shot right to the ribs. He said, hey, you're an idiot, aren't you? You know, and I'm like, well, what are you talking about? You know, and he goes, he gave you a break, you know. You can eat the ticket. I go, well, man, that's fucked up, you know. I shouldn't have to pay that ticket, you know. And that's the way I think, you know. And when I look back on that, boy, I was spun, you know. And that's the kind of alcoholic that I was, just selfish and self-centered. You know, you couldn't tell me shit. You know, and I got married. I saw my friends doing all this weird stuff like getting jobs and getting married and getting houses and cars and shit like that. And I was sacked out on my grandma's couch, you know. I was cool with that. But people were starting to point the finger at me, you know. Hey, you know, you might have a drinking problem, you know. You never finished high school. You ain't never held a job. You're 19 years old. You know, your hair's falling out. You look like shit. You know, so I decided to take care of the outsides. Nice to see you too, Gavin. And so I got the girlfriend, you know, and she got me a job. Well, she got me a job interview, you know, and I tried real hard to screw that up, but they hired me anyway. And, you know, I got the job, you know, and we got our own place, and we had a kid, and had a couple of hot rods, and everything looked all right on the outside, you know. And except on trash day. A lot of beer cans in the trash. But everything looked all right, you know, and I drank like a maniac, and I went to work every day. You know, I was 23 years old. You know, and I was able to do that. I'd had some bone-crushing hangovers at work, you know. But I'd get up and get out of bed and go to work and take care of business, go home and drink till I passed out. She threw me out, you know, she'd had enough. there's more to the story than that. But basically, when she threw me out, I was happy. I got laid off from my job, was collecting unemployment. The old lady kicked me out, said I was worthless, and she was right. And I was ready to party. A lot of people come running to AA when they lose their family. I went straight to the bar. Talked about how my wife threw me out, lost my job, pissing and moaning. It was good for a free drunk, About a year after that, I'd done so many chemicals and so much drinking, that I couldn't stand myself anymore. And I came into Alcoholics Anonymous a little bit paranoid. In fact, I was so paranoid I was followed to my first meeting. And my second meeting, I was followed from the front. Ever been followed from the front? That's a trip. But something happened, this was the first. I had a moment of clarity concerning my drinking and using, and what that moment of clarity was that I could not drink or use successfully. And then I had a thought, which is the most lucid thought I've ever had, which was, you need help, maybe you ought to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, you have had 28 court cards, Maybe they're trying to tell you something. And this lucid thought came in the midst of all that paranoia, and today I believe that was God. And I came to these rooms, and I sat, and I tripped. I followed some of you home, because I thought you were talking about me from this podium. And I got involved. My sponsor got me into service. And it's been a pretty tough road, It's like a roller coaster. I just don't drink no matter what. And I try to be of service to the best of my ability. If you listen to me, I piss and moan a lot, but I always do it. And that's been the thing that saved me, is I've always let my feet do the walking. Forget what's coming out of my mouth, because it's all bullshit anyway. But watch what I do, and I sit up and I show up and I bitch all the way about it, but I like the results that I get. I feel better afterwards. And if you're new around here and you're tired, take a load off. Hang around here for a little while. See if your life doesn't improve. It was about 90 days sober that I realized why I drank. Because you people have talked about this head, and this alcoholic mind. And, the whole time I just thought I drank, because I like to get fucked up. But it turns out, after about 90 days of sobriety, with a head like mine, I finally understood what you people were talking about. That committee. And I knew. So if you're new, give it a little while. You'll figure out whether you're an alcoholic or not. Especially if you sit up straight in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, worried about something you did in your past, Chances are you're an alcoholic. But I'm going to shut up now. So thanks for letting me share.